Welcome to APA Wisconsin's video series, where we interview our great people from around the state to share valuable stories with you. I am Jason Gilman, APA President. Today it is my privilege to introduce to you Tanya Fonseca, the Long Range Planning Manager for the City of Milwaukee. Tanya has a master's in urban planning from Columbia University and has over a decade of experience in the public and private sector. Tanya has great insight into collaborative and community-driven planning, and APA is grateful for Tanya's contribution and time in this series. Thank you so much for doing this interview today. It's a pleasure and privilege to meet with you. The reason that I decided to interview you is because of how many people I talked to in APA that said, you really need to interview Tanya.
Oh, wow.
So you have a
that's very nice of everybody.
You have a great reputation.
So I am the Long Range Planning Manager at the City of Milwaukee, and I've had this role for about 2.5 years, so kind of newer-ish to city government in that way. And I am really passionate about the built environment and policy, engagement, sustainability, and from a young age really was, so kind of found the field eventually that way. So I grew up in a small town in Montana, and I just was always really interested in kind of how it worked, I guess, kind of the streets, the people, the buildings, the housing. It's a tourist town in summer and winter, and kind of seeing it kind of expand and contract. Gorgeous nature and kind of being aware of, human impact on land, and then nature, and just always kind of being interested in that. But I am a true generalist planner. I just can't get enough of all of that, and I'm so grateful I found planning for that reason, because I realized when I was in college that I would not be a very happy architect, because there's so many other things and that I just care about. So
how do you think your career has been grown over time from those early thoughts about your interests and passions?
Sure, yeah. So I studied liberal arts in college because I kind of got cold feet about going right into architecture, but still kind of wanted to get a master's in that. And it was when I studied abroad in Copenhagen for a year, which was really an amazing experience. I saw kind of how they work in that field, and their studies really are very holistic in that way, in terms of engagement and community, urban design, planning, and architecture. You kind of get it trained in it all. And, in those studios, which I'll forever be grateful for, because design is so critical to me too in planning, I just realized that I wanted to get a master's in urban planning. I always dreamt of living in a mega city at some point in my life. I think it was just growing up in Montana and seeing that kind of one extreme and thinking, let's go see, another extreme. And so I did grad school in New York City for that reason. In New York City, I really felt that pressure that I was going to have to specialize in a way that I just was resistant to, and I wanted to be in a smaller city. And so that was kind of the next stop. Like, I want to move to a mid-sized American city and see what it's all about. My first job here in Milwaukee was actually doing neighborhood planning and community organizing, going door to door, really doing that stakeholder engagement, empowering the community to kind of take ownership of the neighborhood and create that vision in a neighborhood that had really been impacted by the foreclosure crisis. It was just a really rewarding time, and I, from there, decided from going nonprofit to try private consulting. I always knew I wanted to work in municipal government at some point too, but just kind of knew somehow, some way I'll get there. But my next calling was kind of doing that consulting work, and that I really loved, because I got to work across the state with communities of all sizes. So I live in Milwaukee, I get to work in Milwaukee, I got to work in Milwaukee at the time, but I also got to work for small communities and mid-sized communities, rural, suburban, across the state, and I really love that. I think being from a small community just, loved that level of service as a planner too, and bringing planning to communities that don't have planning staff always, right? Which is a very real issue, So it's been a fun journey to try nonprofit, private sector, and municipal government in planning.
What do you think the next 10 years hold?
We're at a point now where we've been talking about sustainability and resiliency for a long time, and unfortunately we're at this point where I think it is getting urgent, right? And I think people are seeing that impact in their lives more. And so I think we as a field are kind of prepared because we've been talking about it so long, but then now acting and how we do that. And plan limited finite resources around it, right? Whether that be time or funding, and do it with community too at the same time, is just really critical. And I think that's what's so exciting about our field too. And thankfully we have each other to kind of figure out, okay, how do we move forward, and build our communities to be flexible and resilient, aligning our planning processes, but also our regulations so that we are prepared for that as best as we can be is really important.
Given that great experience you had from, rural Montana, which has a remarkable history, what do you think that, from all of that, like what could planners do to really consider or better address social and cultural needs?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, and I think is an exciting opportunity within our field too. And there's so much that's been done, but just continue to explore and build those relationships between community and our urban form, but also that natural form. And
have you had any epiphanies relative to sort of the intersection between community engagement, urban design and urban planning, and social impact?
When we're doing engagement, it's just never enough, right? No matter what we do in each project, we are continually making improvements so that we can reach more people, be more collaborative with community partners that maybe have that buy-in or that connection that maybe we in government don't, for instance, or that we're building. And so I just think, continuing to experiment is just absolutely critical. And we're ask directly to the community, how can we do better, and not just keep trying things without that dialogue about, hey, we want, almost make that a project of how can we engage or try things differently, to break down barriers to community participation. And we've done that in the city. And of course, we have more work to do in that realm, but we have some priorities and goals built around that because we've done that in partnership with Milwaukee community agencies and leaders, and that's been really instrumental in our work, I think.
How do you think experienced planners can mentor younger planners currently to advance our profession, but also to deal with the road ahead?
Always having those opportunities wherever we work for young planners, whether it's just job shadowing for a day or a week, meeting for coffee, but also kind of having those more formal, 1 or 2 year long programs so that they can actively start working on different projects and kind of see what they're interested in, what they're good at, and what the field holds, I think is just really great. And I think that's one thing I love about our profession is we're very thoughtful about that.
How do you think planners will use AI?
Yeah, I think change in technology there's always those unknowns, right? And I think sometimes there's that scrutiny or the kind of just those unknowns of nervousness, which I think, when I was younger, I never imagined, and then suddenly you're at a point in your life where you're like, what is about to happen? But I think it's absolutely critical for us as planners to be in the driver's seat, I think, with AI so that we are influencing it and we're not just reacting to it, because we have a code of ethics, which I think is such a wonderful thing about our profession. And how can we shape it and use it for good, because there are so many possibilities. One of my colleagues, I really appreciated, she asked Chat GPT to take some language and reformat it at an 8th grade reading level, because that is something really important to us in our department, to be accessible with our language. And it's not always easy, right? And thinking of it as a learning tool too for the public. I know we still have a digital divide, but can that be an additional tool for people to ask questions? And we'll still, of course, be accessible. But if folks have some questions about what is planning or what does this mean in my neighborhood, and AI can answer it correctly,
Yeah.
that is just helpful, right? To, I guess, share information potentially.
You've been so highly regarded given your work in helping APA plan for a great conference here in Milwaukee. What would you say about the benefits of serving in that capacity?
I love the profession, obviously, and the community that I work in, with all community members. Just the opportunity to participate and plan a good conference, but also kind of be able to have that opportunity to showcase Milwaukee. We have so much to share statewide, all of us, and as you know, the state's largest city, we certainly, you know, have a lot to share, but we also have a lot to learn from too. So it was just really exciting to, you know, help put on a good conference, and ensure that we have sessions that are accessible to all of us across the state, because we're all contending with, of course, different places. Every place is unique and different, but we all are still facing similar challenges. So just, it was really an honor and a privilege to do that.
So thankful for your time today and
Thank
what you did
you.
for APA.